All right, welcome to Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff. I am Jeff. I am out of coffee, and I'm not analyzing a weather map this morning. However, we will start off with one, and so we have the 9Z analysis. Basically, I was too busy trying to get in, trying to figure out all the different weather graphics that I wanted to put in here today, so I didn't have time to do a weather map, and I'm not doing this live yet. I've tried to do some of it, but it's not quite where I want it. Something like this, where I can start off with a graphic and then keep going. But anyways, I digress. The big thing to watch out for, oh, there's a couple of things. Interesting weather. So in South Texas today, we're going to be fairly warm. You can see right now down in South Texas that there isn't a whole lot of weather going on. We have a pretty persistent south to southeast flow going in off of the Gulf. That low pressure system off to the southwest in Mexico is probably more like a heat low, which is right over the mountains. That happens from time to time, so that's not necessarily a major feature. The major feature is if you follow up that dry line to the cold front and then there into South Dakota and Nebraska, so basically the northern plains, you'll see that area of low pressure that's been developing there. That is almost the main issue here, and we'll get to the radar and the satellite here in a little bit, but that warm front that we see that goes from Nebraska all the way out to the east coast is going to be one of the drivers, and the other one's the cold front that follows in behind it. So we'll take a look at that here as we get going. In the upper levels, one of the things that's causing this is that big low pressure system that's there in the northern Rockies and then comes out into the northern plains at 500 millibars, or roughly about it's between 17 and 20,000 feet. We're looking at the winds, which roughly about halfway up through the troposphere, and you can see the winds get very strong there in the middle where the bright gold colors are. One of the things that I tried to highlight was the size of the jet streak, which goes all the way down into northern Mexico, but it ends up there towards the Great Lakes. And if you notice the lines, that I drew with the arrows, they all kind of fan out at the top there. So we've got a good area of diffluence aloft, which helps to ventilate thunderstorms, and then that really high bit of wind that follows in behind it is a good bit of energy that's going to move into the area with this. So that's why there has been such an uproar, well, not uproar, but there's an enhanced risk. And like I said, we'll get to that a little bit later. But as I was talking about earlier with South Texas, their biggest problem is the heat. Right now, here in South Texas, in Portland, where we live, the heat index is supposed to be, we're close to Corpus Christi, so we're around 102 today. That isn't necessarily for us, the heat advisory, and we'll show you where the heat advisory is. But you can see all the places that are above 105, and that's going to continue out through the next several days for some of these areas. A lot of it's going to be in the brush country. But if you look at today's heat advisory that came out of the Corpus Christi office, they are looking at high temperatures of 100 to 107 in the orange area, and then heat indices of 105 to 113. 115 is the heat warning, extreme heat warning, so we are below that at this point right now. Of course, that also goes up into the San Antonio forecast area, so where you see Pleasanton and Pearsall, San Antonio, Hondo, Uvalde, they're also in their extreme heat. So mainly it's for the brush country and part of the southern coastal plains. That's that area of the inland portions of San Patricio, Nueces, and Clayburgh counties. And with that, because the humidity, especially out west in the brush country, is going to be 15 to 30% with those high temperatures and winds of 15 to 20 miles per hour, that dry line is going to cause problems. And so we're at least at an elevated fire risk out in the west. So we'll get out of this. The main driver that we really are taking a look at is this enhanced risk that's up here in Michigan, Wisconsin, over part of Lake Michigan. And I am so happy I was able to get the Pro 2 version of RadarScope, because now I can do satellite on here. We're going to put this satellite into motion, which is current. All the little icons, I probably should have shut those off, are storm reports, and in these cases they're heavy rain reports. So some of that out of here, oh, I won't do it while it's moving, but you can see the low is roughly in this general area. We've got the warm front basically down here along these clouds, and then the cold front probably like this. Now, as this stuff continues to move off to the east here during the day, this is what we are most concerned with in this area. Wouldn't be surprised if there's another set of area, something else that comes up out of the south here later on as well, just because of the fact you've got a lot of moisture, the Gulf is open, and for them, and we'll see how all this turns out. Now, one of the things I wanted to show was the tornado risk right now stays out of a good portion of Michigan, south of roughly Holland, almost South Haven, over into Berry County, out there east of Kalamazoo, down to around Coldwater, and then goes into Indiana, and then up into Wisconsin. That's the highest level, or one of the higher levels. Let's see, 5 to 14, 15 to 30. I believe that's 30 to 45% of having a tornado within 25 miles of a point. And then you notice that it's hatched. You can kind of see the hatchings here. Whoops. And that means that a EF2 or greater is possible, and I think that's a 15% chance when you see the hatchings. All right, we'll just kind of move on here. The bigger threats, though, are going to be wind, especially in southwest lower Michigan. Again, we scale up pretty quickly there with the chances for wind over that same area of Wisconsin down through southwest lower Michigan, but having gusts over, I believe it's 80 miles an hour are possible in straight line wind with some of these thunderstorms. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. Would not be surprised if that's the main issue. And then the significant hail hatching, which is anything greater than 2 inches, that white outlined area. But you can see the main threat for hail is still up there in the Great Lakes, where we've been seeing it, just right where the enhanced area is, the orange. All right, then we'll switch over to MRMS radar to see what's going on around the area. As I was saying before, yeah, there's 2.5 inches out in the Dakotas, and some of those. Let's see if we can zoom in on that and get some of those reports out of there. 2.5, 1.3, 1.3 I should say, 1.16, 1.16. See back here, 1.8, and then one of the earlier reports looks like 1.4. The rain has moved on out of that area, so interesting thing to see. We also have an area of heavy rain in Minnesota. It's raining. It's an MPing report. It's not in the amount. Those little red circles around them mean that they are actual local storm reports from the local offices. Oh, and something came through, non thunderstorm wind gust of 52 miles per hour. So it's been pretty gusty underneath that surface low. So what we're watching is for the warm front as it moves north this way, northeast, as it activates, and the cold front roughly like this. Oops, start that over again. The low eventually, as the low and the cold front move in, then we'll probably have the low somewhere around here with the cold front ish there, and then the warm front here. And we'll take a look at that here with the computer models in a little bit. Otherwise, not a whole lot else is going on in the country. They do have a slight risk down in the Virginias and into North Carolina, basically paralleling the Chesapeake Bay and then up into the mountains. So we are going to move on. All right, as I was talking about, we'll back up here to the current conditions roughly. Let's see. This is the 6Z run. The 12Z is not yet in, although it should be starting to come in for the GFS shortly. So here we are at I'll start at the beginning here at 12Z. Currently it's almost, it'll be 15Z here in a little bit, so why don't we go and move up. So there's the low. You can see the low there, and that's what we'll be watching for. Here you can see the warm front, 570 thickness lines, probably a pretty good representation of it. And then the cold front, kind of like that, as we were watching that earlier. So we are going to move on to, where's my history? Go on to the same thing with the most recent HER 15Z. That's kind of what we're looking at right now. And if you remember what we had in the radar pattern, that's pretty much what we got. The HER's pretty good about usually simulating this stuff ahead of time. And we're going to zoom in on that. I'm going to go to the regional. We're going to go to the Midwest. As the low starts to move in, we are most concerned with what's going to happen here later on today. There we go. We're starting to move. The low itself is going to be hung up underneath the that upper level low. But the warm front, and we can map that out here. So the warm front looks to be, we are using the 570 line. That's probably a pretty decent approximation. When we get to about here, and then our cold front, let's do about like this, roughly, huh? Here. Yeah, down the trough, on those lines. Okay. Now, one of the things that we have, switch to purple. Don't get the chance to do this very often, but we've got, oh, it's a very dark purple. Let's lighten it up a bit. There we go. That should do it. Purple usually signifies an occluded front. and this low is occluding, which means the cold air here is overtaking the warm air, and this will close up. Now this triple point can be a source of an area of low pressure that forms along the front, and that can help kick off more severe weather as we get closer in on things. This is by 20Z, which here in Texas, that would be about 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock this afternoon. It would be 4 o'clock in the Eastern Time Zone in Michigan. 5, 6, 7. Here's 8 o'clock in the East, or 7 o'clock in the Central Time Zone. You can see that things are starting to approach the HRRR, which is a short-term forecast model. Has a pretty decent line of various thunderstorms. You could almost suggest that some of this down on the south end is down in this area here are looking somewhat supercellular. And you can probably get away with if you did a really close interrogation of it. But this is only the model. This is not necessarily a this is not the forecast, but it looks like it has a pretty decent amount of coherence with it. And we'll just keep moving on. 2, okay, so 10, 11. So 11 o'clock, it looks like it goes through the Grand Rapids area. 10 o'clock, somewhere getting into Holland, South Haven, Grand Haven, Muskegon, moving through the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo areas, probably somewhere around 11 o'clock at night before it continues to move on. Of course, by that time, it's up around Traverse City in the northern part of the line. Now, the one thing I will say is that when a system tends to kick out like this, the problem you get is that the blow off from these storms, so the anvil and all that, starts to blow up into these storms. And these storms, oops, I should change colors. And these storms start to, their anvil and mid-levels with all the ice start to blow up into these. And what that does is the cells become self-seeding. So the ice that drops into the other storms, we'll get out of these first, will then become, will help to seed and lower the threat, both by helping to produce more snowflakes and ice in the other clouds, which then leads to rain for the most part. It can be kind of heavy rain, you just have to be careful with it, but otherwise you don't get, the severity usually starts going down. It's one of the issues when trying to do severe weather operations in northern Michigan, because we'll see this type of a setup coming around up and down the line, and you notice all this green just kind of starts to blossom outward from everything, and the some of these are just heavy rain in the midst of the line and not necessarily producing severe weather. We still have to watch them. They will sometimes cause issues, but for the most part, that's where we just didn't get a whole lot of severe weather when I was up there. All right, let's see. So as we continue to follow along into, well, we'll just jump up here to the 18-hour one. By that time, which is 7Z, so that's 3 o'clock in the morning, it'll be off Lake Huron, out over Lake Huron. It'll be through Sault Ste. Marie, looks like through the Detroit area as well. Now, this is just the HRRR's idea. Let's see if any of the, well, the ARW is in. I liked this model back when I was up in northern Michigan, mainly due to the fact that it did so well in lake effect. It was one of the few that was really doing well with lake effect. But let's see here. So this is a 12Z model. So we are now at 0Z. Okay. So kind of the same sort of setup. 0Z, 8 o'clock, starts to roll on to the Lake Michigan shoreline. By 9 o'clock, it's getting into Grand Rapids, and then it's through by 10. In this case, it decides that the middle of the line just completely falls apart. And that wouldn't be surprising either, based on the fact that some of that, if you have things that are further to the east that are south of you, those storms will tend to seed and take away the energy for the ones to the north. In this case, it says that those can completely start to fall apart until they get almost into Canada. So around 2 a.m. up by Sault Ste. Marie, they start to get a little stronger. But again, it also has a getting it out of the whole area by, let's see, 4Z out of the Detroit area, so that would be midnight. The HER was a little slower, so we'll see which one of these models works with it. Let's see, the FV3, or as I like to call it, the FV3 is more in line with the HER. I like to call the FV3 the high-res version of the GFS because it has the same similar core to it, but it's convection allowing. It really does not have any real severe weather except for in northern Wisconsin, and it goes into the UP and then crosses and causes problems in maybe Traverse City as it falls apart. But it is out of the area by 3 a.m. So the ARW is the faster of the models so far. Another model I like to look at was the NAM Nest, and this is the 3-kilometer version of the NAM that allows convection. That is explicit thunderstorms, and it has quite the little bowing segment going through, so that'll be an interesting thing. But its timing is about the same. It looks about 10 o'clock, getting along the Lake Michigan shore, through the Grand Rapids area by 11, 12 o'clock, and it's halfway across, and then it is out of the area by 3 a.m. So right now, that timing of getting on shore around 10 in Lake Michigan, and then leaving off the Lake Huron and out of the state around 3 a.m. is the most consistent one. Now the question then becomes, what do these storms look like? That is something that we will need to see. Let's see what let's take a look at a sounding here. So when it hits the shore, let's do a sounding right about here. Okay. It has a marginal tornado. Look at the photograph. It does have some curvature to it, but it is very, I hate it when they always kind of like loop back on each other. It's not always a good sign with that. There is been some analogs that have shown significant hail, 61 loose matches in that case. Just trying to look at some of the other indices here. There's no surface cape by that time. It's getting pretty cool by that time of the day. And close that out. Let's see what Grand Rapids has here. Yeah, the nocturnal inversion is going. So these storms have to go off of inertia, but pretty decent curvature in the 1 to, or 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 kilometer region. So we'll be taking a look at least with the curvature there, that's tornadic like. Some really good matches for significant hail, significant supercells, at least looking at sounding analogs. Effective layer STP. Let's see here. But yeah, so those storms as they come on shore could be an issue, at least for at least one county, before it starts to they start to fall apart. And this is the NAM 3 kilometer. So we'll see how that goes. It's got a very weird kind of look. Don't usually see a lot of it, but you know, these are convection allowing, so it's going to try to go with what its physics tells it to. Is there any other ones? No, we'll kind of keep it that way. All right. Well, so the summary is, well, actually, let's do this. The Gaylord office tends to put out DSS packets at during these times. So for northern Michigan, they're taking a look at the key messages: be scattered to numerous thunderstorms developing. Any storm that develops strong to severe. Threats are large hail, damaging winds, a tornado or two is possible. I hate that phrase, you know. Isolated tornado, okay. But yeah, it is just a phrase I'm not a fan of. Severe weather is hard to see after dark, which is true. So tonight's severe weather outlook: wind, tornado, and hail are the main ones, with the hail being the most elevated one. All right, we'll take a look at the Grand Rapids. So here's the Grand Rapids, which is pretty much what we were discussing earlier. The estimated time for the thunderstorms tonight, 8 to 9 along the lakeshore. You start getting inland, 9 to 10, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek. 10 to 11, it'll be in the Big Rapids area. 11 to 12, then it starts getting out of the Grand Rapids forecast area over there on the east side, which would be Mount Pleasant, Lansing, and gets on the other side there. And with that, I'm going to close out. It's Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff.